So, can we approve the minutes even though you weren't here?
Yep.
Well, there's only two of us.
Well,
So,
yeah, only two sides.
But you,
I didn't sign.
but you.
Did you read them?
Did you read them?
Oh, I read the previous ones, not last.
Did you read the previous? You did. You read them. So that's three. That's three enough. That's enough to approve the minutes.
Okay, all right,
If
good.
you're all set, if you agree. Okay, so we approve the minutes. And
Both sets are just the 2 weeks ago.
Oh, that's right.
oh, have we,
See, that's what I was saying.
We didn't.
those
did
those
we-
haven't been approved either. 2 weeks ago.
The one prior, yeah.
So what was the date?
Tonight, we had the choice of signing two sets.
Did we not approve the
Oh,
minutes
right.
from the
September
2 weeks ago?
23rd.
I don't think they were included.
In last minutes? You, what did you write? You didn't write approved minutes in your minutes.
They got handed out in the prior packet, but I don't think when the day of the meeting came, I don't think that they were in the book, remember?
Yeah,
That's why we didn't approve them, I
but
think.
you've done it. You've said it here.
Oh,
You said-
well, how about
you-
that?
But no, you said September 17th.
No, because you did, I'm sorry, you did approve them, you just didn't sign them. That's what,
That's
you
right.
actually did, you did approve them.
I think that's
They
right.
just weren't there to sign, if I recall.
Okay, but how about last meeting's minutes?
Is that what we're
That's-
approving?
We're approving last,
That's what we approved.
Okay, but
October
I didn't,
1st.
Correct.
I'm not,
Martha read them and she's
okay,
had
okay.
these 3 votes, so we're all set. Okay, so, Kurt, I understand that you need to do whatever it is you're going to do here, and then you need to be somewhere.
But yeah, I think that's it too.
Yeah. So are you here for the community connections or the select board liaison for the aging in Hartland, is what I'm guessing?
Aging and heart.
That's what I thought. So you want to lead off?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So should I stand?
No, you don't need to.
Okay. This is my first select board meeting in 10 years.
But if you kneel down.
I said there's some clowns afoot. The select board has been extremely and generously supportive of aging in Heartland, number one, especially over the consideration of aging in Heartland and the purchase of the house across the road. And we wanted to continue that relationship, although we're not asking for anything. We have been talking for years, I guess, about a senior center, about senior housing. We have a really good organization in aging in Heartland. I understand from other people that it's looked up to all over the state, really, for the things we've accomplished, the programs that continue on, and the volunteer service that's provided. And so what we wanted to do is figure out a way to get these senior center and senior housing projects accomplished. But there's a hang-up. There are 3,300 people in Hartland, according to OB1 Clyde, and there are 1,100 of them who are over 60. And that's a number, I suppose, that's growing. So we have lots of old people. We don't have a lot of space for them to live or projects for them to do. And it's very difficult for them to get where they're going. And even among the 1,100, there's only a certain number who are really interested in or able to participate in what we have in mind. So we got this brilliant flash of light that Windsor is 5 miles away. They have lots of old people. They have like us, and they also have lots of resources, and they have spaces that are available to use for projects, and they have senior housing. And as you and I have discussed, a lot of the people who are over 60 in Hartland went to school with people in Windsor, so they know each other. It's two communities that are semi-related. So we would like to start exploring, and we talked to Windsor about this, some people from Windsor about this, and they were very excited about possible joint projects, joint programs and services and support for older people. We can lend them some of our organizational resources, and they can lend us some of their spaces, which would save us from building a senior center that might not be all that well attended. Some of the issues are transportation and the fact that there isn't really an organization in Windsor to talk to. But that's where we are now, is just exploring the possibilities. And what we were hoping we could do is to open a line of communication between Aging in Hartland and the Select Board so that we can communicate what happens at the explorations and keep you informed, and then if there's something that we need or a decision we need made, we'll be up to speed right at the moment. And a liaison person would be appropriate.
I think one thing to keep in mind is that Aging in Hartland is not a town organization. It's private, not in any way affiliated with the town, except informally.
Exactly. If we were part of the town, you could tell us what to do.
It may not work so well, though.
That's right.
Where to go?
And this is better because we can tell you what we're doing.
I think you're doing really well without any government help. That's the government guidance.
So,
Rob?
I have a question. And I forget because I don't have it in front of me, but does the town of Hartland donate through taxes to Aging in Hartland? Is that one of the charitable organizations that gets money?
Yes.
An appropriation.
Appropriate.
Yeah.
Approved by the
Donor
voters.
said it's not great.
But other than that, I think it's really, to Gordon's point, it's an ad hoc group that started, with some private individuals.
That's right.
that's
Okay.
correct. I think it's $5,500 for a community nurse.
I can go check.
No?
Yeah, I think that's right.
That sounds right.
Goes to the community nurse, yeah. I suppose ideally, in Hartland, we'd have our own center, but that's probably unrealistic. So maybe you've got a good idea.
It's one of those things where, how do you generate the demand first, then do it, or build it and they will come?
Yeah,
Well, we think that build it and they will come is a little too premature. Let's just see what happens.
yeah.
And also, we've been fortunate to be welcomed in Woodstock and in Hartford to their centers.
Yeah, I don't know the history of the Woodstock one to a great extent. Maybe you know about it. I think that was donated from the building. I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, I think all told, I think it was about $600,000-700,000 that went into the building. I don't know what was purchased and what was improvements and
Yeah.
refurbishments. But that's how the facility got started. And I talked to people up at Bugby, and they say it's about the same price for them to have gotten started with their facilities. So,
Yeah.
so that's a big, not that.
Are they a part of the town or are they separate?
Hartford is, it gets services from the town, but they're separate.
The town owns the building, though. The
That's right.
Bugby Center is owned by the town of Hartland. Whereas Thompson is not owned by the town. It's privately owned by a nonprofit organization, Thompson Center. So that's a significant difference in how it
So
works.
In Windsor, they do not have a central aging organization.
Here's that they don't, which is pretty interesting because they have several housing facilities, like Old Windsor Village is an example, where there are a significant number of seniors. They have the hospital, which provides a lot of services to elders. They have the Stoughton House, which is both the residence and provides services such as meals and things like that.
They're kind of hoping that our talks with them would be an inspiration to get an organization going.
Who funds the senior housing over there in Windsor?
Most of it is financed by the housing trust, what used to be called Rockingham, I guess, is that a new name? Rockingham Housing
Well,
Trust?
the Stoughton House and the other buildings is called Homes of Runnymede.
Those are privately, right.
Yeah.
And then the other facilities like the
Windsor Village.
Windsor Village and everything are owned by Rockingham Housing Trust. And the money that goes for people who cannot pay the market rate for rent is, of course, comes through the Section 8 program, federal program. And they received a lot of funding, tax credit funding to get those buildings rehabbed.
Yeah, those are all residences, and what you're really talking about is a meeting place or a activity center kind of thing.
Correct.
Is that right?
Well, we see, when you talk to people, they see two needs.
Yeah,
They see that there is no senior housing here. I mean, they would like to see some,
yeah.
you know, but this is like a handful, half a dozen to a dozen people talk to us about that. And then, of course, the senior center, so a separate one. And of course, some visions are that it'd be nice to have a senior center in the midst of our senior housing.
Yeah,
Something like that.
yeah,
What we need is more seniors.
really.
We'll have them.
Yeah, they're coming along.
But there are some, I think there's some challenges on the housing side because we have some market rate people like Chet Paisho who are eager, as I'm sure you know, to build more rental housing at market rate. But we really don't have anybody who's interested in constructing subsidized housing for people who can't pay market rate. And a lot of seniors fall into that category, as I'm sure you know. So that's really where the challenge is. Because in Windsor, what's happening, as I understand it, a lot of private landlords are cutting back on Section 8 because the demand for market rate housing is so high that they don't see that they have to do Section 8. So as a result, there's been a reduction or being a reduction in Section 8 housing. So I think that as we go forward, at least for the senior population, that's part of the challenge. But it is a big challenge, as I'm sure you know.
There's a lot of activity in Hartford with subsidized senior housing right there on White River Junction.
Mhm.
And then you have Twin Pines. There's an organization up there that looks for places to provide affordable housing, so forth. We're just wondering, you know, why we don't fit into the puzzle.
Well, I think your sense of direction is good. Any thoughts?
Any volunteers to be our ear?
Why?
Because you're interested in it.
Oh.
All it takes is an email address and we'll send you all the information.
Okay.
Didn't have to read it.
You want to do it?
Sure.
Excellent.
Thank you,
Thank you
Mary.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the good work you do.
A pleasure, right?
The pleasure is all ours.
It's my email and there's my address too.
Perfect. I can take the envelope.
You can have it.
Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
So thank you very much for giving us a few minutes of your time.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in.
Sure. Stay for the rest? Good for you.
Well, let's see, one more Heartland Community Connections. Who wants to,
Are you ready for us?
we are, who wants to,
I guess I'll begin
start?
so basically a little background. Heartland Community Connections is sort of at a crossroads in its existence. We've been struggling over the last couple of years with board energy. There are existing board members that would like to leave, but we haven't been able to recruit new board members, and we've been struggling with changes in I guess lack of fulfilling some of our typical things that we've done in the past. We haven't been able to do that. So we're sort of considering either disbanding completely or reducing to maybe just doing what seems to be the most vibrant piece, which is the breakfast. And as a result of being at this crossroads, we're not sure that we want to accept the 2018-2019 allocation that the voters had voted for us. And so one question is, if we don't accept that money, what happens to it?
Another question is, can we refuse the money if the voters agreed to allocate it to HCC? So those are
Yeah, so can we refuse it, and then what happens if we do?
I say you can refuse it because we've got already spent it somewhere else. No, I'm serious, on
We don't have any choice.
unbudgeted maintenance.
It kind of sums it up. I mean, you have raised the money via taxes. It would, if you were to end the year in a surplus, I think that it would go back, or has the potential to go back. At the moment, we have a fiscal year update coming up. I don't see that happening, so I could double check, but I would think that it's raised in the general fund. If it doesn't go to them, it'll be absorbed by the general fund. And however we end up budget-wise with it.
I don't regularly go to those breakfasts, but I have been to a few, and I hear good things. I've never heard anything but good things about those breakfasts. And the ones I went to were certainly, it was worthwhile, and I feel bad that I haven't been to some of them, you know. And I wonder if trying to do one every month is too much of a burden. If you did half as many, if that would work out better.
If I would clarify, we don't really do one per month.
You don't do every okay.
Although they go in spades, it's sort of September, October, November, and then
January, February,
March, April.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they self-sufficient with the donations?
The donations do cover about 90% of the food costs, but it doesn't cover any of the costs of my cost for my time. So it would have to be all volunteer to.
Did you, how was, did you get a salary, Jackson?
Not no, it
How was
was
that?
hourly per.
And how was that funded? Out of the 5,500? Or
Well, out of the 4,000 is the.
oh, 4,000, yeah.
It's been that way for the last several years. Prior to that, we had funding from Mount Scotty Prevention Project. Partnership. But they changed the focus of their mission to more policy and less, would you say?
Less community asset building.
Yeah, and so that, we sort of never regained a solid funding footing for some of the programs that, we used to do puppet camp and other kinds of things that we would fund through them. And so what's really dwindled down this past year is pretty much the breakfast, and then, we're hoping that some other entities would take over, like the teen club dances, that maybe the school would be able to do that, or the rec program. But we haven't really found any other entity that would fill in for the breakfasts. So that's why we're sort of at a crossroads and sort of seeking input on from you guys.
So the money that you want to give back, how was that spent before? Or
It was spent on either some on the breakfast, paying Jackson for his time. Jackson also did he would know what he did, but he did a youth group at the elementary school.
We had other, we had a youth music program.
Emerging artist show.
Yes. We did that other years, teen club dances, other events, part of the old home day stuff. I mean, it was just other things that we don't, as a board, see continuing on anything other than the breakfast, and maybe not even that. And so we're saying we don't need the upcoming $4,000 to sustain either the breakfast, and certainly not any of the, so.
The photo contest, or the, what is it?
4th of July.
What, identify this thing. I thought that was really good and very popular as an event at the 4th of July.
And that was Jackson's brainchild.
Yeah.
I think there are things that have been popular, but it's so, I think a lot of other town organizations are finding this recruiting new blood to take over is very difficult.
And I'm going to speak for Jackson, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. But I think part of this is that you would like to reduce your involvement as the HCC person. And we, as a board, don't know that we have enough to offer someone to take over, that role in terms of activities and that sort of thing. Is that, would you say?
In other words, it's hard to find someone that would work for.
Yeah, an occasional $20 here and there.
Yeah. He's one step above
And
a glorified volunteer.
Right, and the board doesn't, to operate totally as volunteers is not something that I don't think the board is capable of doing. Speaking as two of the board members, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Another factor has been that kind of the dwindling participation in events, with the exception of the breakfast. That there seems like the niche that we were filling was no longer a need that we could see that the community was stepping up and enthusiastic about.
And some of the things that we did were then, there is now the Aging in Hartland group, so they've taken some of that.
That was conceived.
And the rec center has taken some things that we had previously done, which we're grateful for. So that's, I think, another part of what's happened. And I think the teen club dances, just the attendance has really dwindled.
Yeah. It seems like the kids are more interested in more multimedia entertainment than just getting together at the rec center with music and lights.
Not surprised.
So do you need like a vote or something to say we'll take the money back, or how do you
Well, I
proceed
think
for
that
this?
I wouldn't worry too much about the money one way or another. Because it's not gonna get wasted. You know, if we-
We just don't want the constable to come to us.
yeah.
But it didn't make sense to take the money
No.
without having a clear
No.
vision of moving
No.
forward. with it.
No,
And as it stands now, if the organization, does disband, there is some residual money which, we'll probably figure out to distribute to a program at the elementary school or to Hartland Community Arts, or something that still relates to the scope of what HCC has been doing.
So is the sense you want to abandon the community breakfast?
Well,
Go ahead.
I mean, we wouldn't necessarily want to.
Well, I would say that I am ready to step back from being the coordinator and the one who organizes it. So we're ready to have someone step up to that position if there is someone that wants to do that. I think the team of volunteers that we have are dedicated volunteers and would continue to volunteer. I can't speak for all of them, but I'm no longer interested in continuing as the coordinator for those projects.
Would you consider advertising for that position? Just throwing it out to the community and saying, this position is available? Not even if, as a volunteer position, let's say, that these community breakfasts are probably going to go away unless somebody is interested in taking over the organization of it.
Yeah, we've talked about that and and then presenting this at one of the breakfasts as a issue to be discussed, and putting it on the listserv. Yeah, we've absolutely discussed all those options.
So you would do that before you decide to disband, or no?
I can't speak for the whole board.
I think we have another board meeting scheduled in a couple of weeks. And
okay, that's good.
yeah, so we haven't totally gone into hibernation. But I mean, I think, and I know that this is something that's near and dear to Chuck and to other people in the community, to keep the breakfasts running. So I know some of the board members would certainly be interested in, trying to have someone continue it.
Can you give us, maybe Jackson could give us a really rough ballpark figure of what it costs to organize?
How many hours?
Yeah, 6 breakfasts for a year?
Typically, a breakfast, I spend about 6 hours on each breakfast, getting the material together, getting the word out, getting the hall reserved, etc. And then being there, turning the lights on, and all the way through to turning the lights off.
Yeah.
So it is approximately 6 hours of time. So depending on, if someone were going to do it for a stipend, we have to figure out what we're going to pay that person. And the cost of the food, we average somewhere around 36 overall. 36 people attend. With the most attended breakfast was 75 people. And we had a couple that were very low attended. But on the average, mid-30s. So it ends up costing about $120 to get the food. We asked for a $7 donation, and that covers most of our expenses. When
Food
people
expenses.
actually put $7 in indicated.
Well,
And that just covers food.
and I think an important part that you play is the point person for whatever group it is or person it is that's going to be the presentation. That I think is a really important role, rather than trying to have a number of board members be that point person. I think that's an invaluable part of this, is that they have one person that they can deal with in terms of what they might need or questions or
Yeah.
Well, could you, I just have a thought, maybe take this up at your meeting that's coming up, and it's not up to us to tell you what to do at all. You should decide if you, I would be very enthused if you would want to continue, but it's up to you. And if you don't have someone that wants to step up and be a leader, then maybe we could advertise, or you could advertise it as a paying position, and might be somebody.
If the board does decide to go that route and
It's
continue,
not your board, yeah.
our board,
Yeah.
the HCC board,
Yeah,
then the funding will be necessary to continue
Yeah, right.
to cover that stipend for that person.
Well, I guess let me ask this question. If we decline it this year, and then after, with the existing amount that we have, that carries us through a year of breakfasts, do we have to go through the whole process the following
Reapply.
year?
Yeah.
Probably.
Which would need a petition, however many names.
I think the board has the ability to
We could
determine
do it, yeah.
otherwise, if they so choose. Otherwise it seems to be that it would go to a
Yeah. There's a long list
reposition.
that we vote for at town meeting, and
Correct.
that's one of them. If you discontinued and you were off the list, in order to get back on that list, you'd have to be a special article on the agenda one time. But that's not a big deal. And
Well, the biggest part of that is getting the signatures on the petition.
yeah, but we can do it without that.
Oh, you could?
The board can do it. We can put things on the agenda.
Without going through the petition?
Yeah.
Because I could see that as being happening, but I wouldn't ever imagine that $4,000, which is what we currently get, would be necessary for just doing the breakfast.
That's right. That's what I was thinking too.
right, it would be a smaller
If you-
sum. Keep someone going through the year to
Yeah,
arrange 6 breakfasts and,
Right.
I don't think it's too much to expect for people that come to the breakfast to pay for their food, and that's what you've been doing. So mostly, it's coming up with,
Yeah, I mean, if it was
Most money
200,
for
I don't
organizers.
know, but like $1,000.
we should be playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
all right. So we're going to relinquish this year's funds? Yeah. We've released them back to the town for this year.
And you have some money on hand, you said,
Correct.
otherwise.
Yes.
Okay.
Which would be enough to fund the breakfast for
A year or?
a year.
And when is Jackson stepping away?
We have a breakfast scheduled for November 10th. After that,
What's the subject?
Global
Topic?
Global warming?
Oh,
Very cheerful, Saturday morning.
Yeah. I know, just
Great.
like the last one was real.
Although I did in my email with David, we talked about offering to do or be involved in a follow-up from the last one, and I don't know where you guys are at with that.
As I pointed out, I meet with Mount Prevention Partnership on Thursday. I can let Melanie know and Christine know. I think that ended, and the answer is we'll look into how we want to follow up on this, and I'm not sure that there's an exact answer.
Okay.
So if you're interested, I can pass the word and, maybe they'll go that route again. Somebody kind of threw out having it over at the school or something to that effect, so I'm not sure. But if you're dwindling,
Right.
how would you want to
I'm just saying,
participate in that?
like one, I mean, we could pull together one breakfast.
And I do know, actually, I was talking to a school board member, and I know that they are trying to carry on that conversation at the school and, sort of addressing what steps should be taken next and.
Yeah, I'll know more. I haven't met with Bounce Peppy since that Sunday or Saturday, I'm sorry, so I don't want to speak before I meet with them, but I'll let them know that you're interested in playing a part in that.
Because in that case, we would have it would be decided, it wouldn't be trying to decide who was going to come and be the presenter. We would know that, so that part is all taken care of. It's just a matter of getting the secret recipe for the pancakes from Jackson, and
Well, that's gonna blow the entire budget.
So does somebody donate syrup or?
Yes, the Ambrose Tretcher
Ah,
family has donated the syrup for the entire 10 years of breakfast, so
wow,
You've been doing this for 10 years?
10 years.
wow,
can you tell why we're a little tired
yeah,
of
wow,
giving up a Saturday a month?
yeah,
Making pancakes.
Yeah, Saturday morning.
Yeah.
that's impressive.
Okay, thank you.
Should I email you back, Andy, at the end of the week, or
Yeah, that would be fine. Whatever you want.
however you want to do it?
Andy can be your point person.
Sure.
Doesn't it? She just had.
He's
I'm
probably more
My
reliable than
emails are
his
confusing
emails.
because they have my wife's name.
I was going to say, it
I
does
get
get a
buried in
little,
all this trash email.
I don't think I addressed one of the responses.
Yeah, you
to the
said
right-
Kim. That's fine, that happens all the time. I have so many emails, I don't want another one, so I just. That's
Well,
totally.
thank you for
Yeah.
all
Okay.
your
Yeah,
many
that's
pancakes.
It's really impressive,
That's a lot.
yeah.
Good enough. We'll be in touch.
Yes. Maybe you want us for the rest of the meeting.
Yeah, welcome to stay.
Yeah. Good night.
Stay.
Less than 14 minutes.
Is the 18 is that energy committee? Just trying to think if that's one of my weekends in town.
I didn't eat.
Well, what else do we want to talk about? You guys here for energy talk? Any energy concerns? We don't have that on the agenda.
Just, just a quick update. This was done years ago, but we're going to be hosting a button-up weatherization program here at Damon Hall on the 24th. That's through Efficiency Vermont, which is a button-up program, which is through Efficiency Vermont. So trying to get the word out on that and keep you posted on some of the things that we're working on here. Some of that will be an outreach, or we're trying to get some posters and some cards out to people. We kind of jammed it in as far as time. And I think did we get the poster up today?
Yeah, well, not the big poster, I didn't see
Yeah.
it yet, but
So,
I got the little notices.
good.
You know.
So, we've got one poster coming for the bulletin board out there. So, just keeping you posted with where we're at, what we're doing. We have the opportunity to do other types of workshops for folks through the through Efficiency Vermont, like zero carbon footprint houses, mobile trailer, solar panels. I forgot, there's a whole bunch of them that we can do if we so choose. We can host workshops for townsfolks. The program is going to have the kickoff here, and then people in town can sign up for a free walkthrough with one of the local vendors, weatherization vendors. It's a little bit different this year because they weren't pushing the free walkthrough, which now they are. And Bruce Merritt and Franz von der Kamp were the two identified contractors through Efficiency Vermont, and they will be presenting upstairs on the 24th.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, of course they're invited.
You to participate.
They can actually come in for free. But while we're here,
Everybody's free, that's right.
well, there is that.
Why you gotta ruin it?
So, but also while we're here, you've got several people from the committee, several of the active members, and not sure if there's any other concerns or questions or directions you'd like to share with us. We are starting to put together some numbers to see about energy efficiency in some of the different town buildings. This is kind of a revisit from years ago. I know Bob Stacy had a pretty good handle on that.
We did a lot of work on various buildings, including this one. I was making them more energy efficient, changing the heating system and insulating. Probably more can be done.
Our electricity comes from the hydro. Did you know that?
I did.
Yeah.
A part of it.
I thought there was some sort of deal where the town got either a reduced rate or a free rate on that.
Reduced.
Yeah, for that. So, interestingly enough, you know, with the, as you probably know, there was an energy audit done on the library, and when you look at the return on it, part of the return is factored in by what your energy costs are. So, if you've got a low energy cost, the return is decades out. But that doesn't discount that it needs to be done, and it's, you know, in the state with their mandates to get to zero carbon footprints.
Yeah, I know.
We don't need to think, at some point in time, we need to start thinking about that.
I don't remember, it seems like it might be 6 cents a kilowatt reduced price on their electricity.
Yeah.
Something, is that right?
Yeah, I was trying to think of that too. I was thinking of it in percentage. Was it 11?
I thought it was 20% less than normal.
I was thinking 11 or 15.
I think it's 15 sounds about right.
15.
Something, I thought it was 15 cents or 15% or something, 15 something, but
What is, yeah.
you have to
The
double
big-
check with Jay or the contract.
The big lift is really with the heating, not so much with the electric, but there again, you know, with buying a bulk fuel through the towns, and what is it, the towns and...
The VLCT. pool.
Yeah, with that, I'm sure you get a better rate than your average citizen here. So, again, it's lower cost. It looks like when we first got the paper back, we went, this is a no-brainer, it's never gonna happen, but there's a lot more to the picture than just the heating cost, and as is well known, you know, the roof, the ice dams, the comfort, the mold, stuff like that.
What are you guys working on?
This week, just the button up, just trying to get organized on that. But yeah, we're starting to get together some numbers on for the different buildings, so we can help kind of evaluate those and give them back to Dave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's your focus this year, you would say?
Unless you have something else.
No.
Yeah.
We're also going to follow up with the library and submit a budget for weatherizing the library and justifying that. The payback period given by the Efficiency Vermont formula was about 80 years.
80?
80 years, yes. But there's more to the story than that. And so we need to get the actual fuel oil costs, which we put a request in, but haven't gotten them quite yet. Yeah, I just got the electricity figures today, and I guess there's a net metering arrangement with the hydro, as best I can tell from looking at the bills. So, but the total amount of electricity was, I think it was around 1,500 to 2,500 a year. So I mean, it's not zero with the electricity either. And so I mean, the Energy Committee will take a look at that and see whether maybe there's some way of bringing that down as well.
Great.
You find the library. It's right here. You'll find the library and tell you the answer. It's great.
So, is that comprehensive for the fuel or just the electric?
It's both. I think it's here. I'm just trying to find library with this. So.
What page are you on?
It starts on page 10.
No, Gordon, it's in the,
It's in the wrong part.
it's separated out by itself. It's in the Foster Meadows Library. It's not part of the operations, it's part of the facilities.
So there's another library.
Yeah, there's a Foster Meadows Library in this guy.
There we go. That's still page 10. I have too many things.
Yeah, here we go. How about page 4?
Let's just say budgeted $650. Wait a minute, that's the wrong. No, that should have wrong.
That's for the fuel.
Look at page 4. Page 4 and page 3. Foster Meadow Library
Page 3, yeah.
at the bottom.
Oh, that,
Yeah.
$6,750.
How much?
$6,750. The library electricity.
I'm sorry, couldn't
That's what's
quite hear.
budgeted.
That's what's budgeted.
6750.
And
6,750.
6,750, that's for the fuel oil.
No, that's for electricity, that's what's budgeted.
What's budgeted?
Because I looked at the bill and I divided that by 3, because it was 3 years worth of bills, and maybe I didn't read it properly. But it was a spreadsheet with the individual monthly bills
The fuel budget's 2,500.
detailed, and a bottom line at the bottom. Only one bottom line, which was that figure.
That number actually doesn't look right, Gordon, for some reason.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot.
I'll
That's
So
a bit of air
I-
conditioning.
have to take a look at that.
I don't see what you have in front of you, so I'm trying to feel
It might not be right.
So one of the other things that we'd like to consider
So this-
yeah,
possibly
it's the
is
same thing that we have, yeah.
So far,
getting
the
funding
library.
for a couple
Yeah,
more energy audits.
This is for,
It's a little bit premature yet until we start looking at some of the costs
oh, I see, now this is just.
associated with the different buildings, and we might want to target that. But as a committee, we would like to have that consideration next year. And I think we submitted a budget
Well, I can do this
that
one.
should reflect that.
Put it here.
So, we're not necessarily saying we're gonna have to do it, but as we start to mull over these numbers and look at some of these different buildings, that might be a request.
Okay.
And as I say, we put that in a request for a budget for the next year. And again, with your guys' guidance, I mean, Dave's been great at saying, you know, this is what your job is, this is what you're tasked with, and this is what would help him in the town.
I wonder what's typically an energy program that you might go after on a building.
Yeah.
How many years payback would make sense? Because 80 years does not make any sense at all.
By itself, it doesn't, absolutely not. I mean, we all got, like,
That's what that
this is a no-brainer, but I think, you know, as I said before, there's other issues going on with the library and the roof and whatnot, so I don't think you can take that particular building by itself, but I think,
I just wonder.
the other thing is, that somebody's gonna look at it and say, okay, well, at today's fuel prices, this is what it would be, but there's a tipping point as when fuel goes back up, that it would probably make more sense. Efficiency Vermont. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so Catherine points out that the formula for the Efficiency Vermont is very, very conservative in what it saves. And what was explained to us was that the formula has been changed a few times through Efficiency Vermont. And there were people who felt like they were oversold the bill of goods. So they've really tightened those up and made them very conservative now. The contractor felt like that it was easy to get a better turnaround, a better efficiency with sealing the building than what their formula showed.
The 80 years is
Yeah.
not really right. In other words, I mean, it's a better payback sooner than all that. But I don't know what they did.
Yeah, well, I'd like to see a number more like 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you're gonna spend money.
Right.
Well, the nice thing about the walkthrough, the audit was there were some things that were easily identified. There is some low-hanging fruit, and that's been
Yeah.
reviewed with Dave. And, you know, and then there was a bigger discussion. Okay, well, if you take the low-hanging fruit, what are the next steps, and can you parse it out over a number of years? And does it make sense? What makes sense to parse out? You know, can you parse it out in 5 increments, or does it make sense to do 3? Because if you parse out some of them, it won't work. You know, if you insulate half the roof but not the other half, for instance, it just
You'll still have ice dams.
yeah, you still have the ice dam. So, you know, and he was good enough to share those with us and review them with Dave. So there certainly would seem to be a couple of things that were less expensive and low-hanging fruit that would be highly recommended. But you spend the whole, what is it, $38,000? Probably not. Probably not now. Fuel goes to $10 a gallon,
Hmm.
different story.
Okay.
Anything else? Well, we lost her. I was asking if there was anything else. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move along now.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for being on the committee. It's definitely a good thing. So we can move on to the budget update. Yes, they're all.
So we're 3 months through. We're essentially still early. We're
That's fine.
on paper, on budget. We're 25% through the year, which should be 25% expense. That's about what we are. However, like last year, I'll point out the highlights, which I think are going to be continuous from here until the end of the year. That is going to be problematic for us. The first one is right on page 1, the legal professional services. As we continue through the appeal process, a little bit of an update on that in the town manager update, but we're trending over on that one, and I see that continuing to trend over as we go through the year. And then again on the Children's Center, the Four Corners Children's Center, as we're wrapping up the painting out there, we are trending and will be about $25,000 over in that particular line item. We didn't do the front steps to the rec center, so that's about a $7,000 gain in our favor, but between the Four Corners Children's Center and the legal professional services, that's going to create some pressures on us through the year, and I continue.
Is this
I
under
think
capital improvements, Dave, or is this?
The Four Corners Children's Center, unfortunately, is not under capital improvements. That is on page
6?
Yeah,
6.
activity center.
We have got the painting, and we have, did you transfer Josh Boynton's over to capital improvements? So part of that is under, sorry, Gordon, part of that is under capital improvements. The work that Josh Boynton did to the sill and the framing, we considered to be a capital improvement, whereas the painting and the other work, we considered maintenance. So you'll see the 13,716 as far as the painting, and we did some other, the electrical work was also about $3,200 there. And then
Under capital improvements.
I actually don't see that come over into the capital improvements.
Activity center is,
put it on the depreciation schedule,
it's all,
Okay.
it's all zeros here.
So he put it on, it needs to come over to, he took it off of 1 and the adjustment went to depreciation, so, or the depreciation schedule, so that'll need to come over into the capital improvements. So $10,000 that was, you saw last meeting, Josh Boynton's invoice come through. So between the two of those, you know, the 13 and the 10, 23 will end up being about 25 over for the Four Corners Children's Center. We had some money in there for maintenance, and we have some offsetting from the rec center steps, but, you know, not enough. So again, between the two, I expect some pressure, budgetary pressure on that. And in the highway department, we are trending presently where we should. However, there were some invoices in your packet today for hard pack and some hauling. So two particular line items that I pointed out a couple meetings ago and will continue to point out, the subcontracting in that hard pack, the 3/4 crush hard pack, will be essentially over budget. That was a decision made that to apply hard pack onto the roads. And I think I gave at one point in time kind of a detailed kind of update on where we are with the highway surplus money and how that's going to play into the use of the hard pack and the subcontracting.
Dave, I'm on page 11.
Yep.
And I highlighted this. Up under, I guess it's summer maintenance. You've got spot hard pack and with a budget of 65,000, and then down under gravel resurfacing, under paving and resurfacing, you've got 80,000. So where does this hard pack that you've been buying fall on this, in this?
So under paving and resurfacing, that is strictly paving expenditures.
Okay.
So the 15,000 that we've spent there, it was for the Queechee Road project. And that's what that $80,000 is for, budgeted. The hard pack that we've been applying to the roads is the 3/4 spot hard pack under summer maintenance. So we have essentially expended, I think that the invoice that came through today was maybe about 12,000, so we're probably have expended about 62,000 so far to date.
Can we just stop that?
Yep. Can we just stop applying hard pack? We have for the fall. I anticipate that we will apply more in the springtime.
Oh. So that's what you're saying, keep an eye on it, because we'll go over budget there.
Absolutely, yep.
Okay.
That and the subcontracting line item as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because we utilize some outside contracting to bring that in. I think the hard pack line item is going to be really the one to watch, but I'm highlighting both of those line items.
You want to give us any update on whether the paving is going to happen or not?
Whether what's going to happen?
The Brownsville Road.
Oh.
It is I would say if I don't hear from them early next week, that we'll probably put it off until springtime.
Unless we have a heat wave.
Unless we have a heat wave. It's it's 31 degrees last night. It's starting to get down there.
And later this week is supposed to get quite a lot colder.
So,
so we're going toward winter, I guess. This is off subject, but do we have confidence in the pothole filling that we did that will work through the winter?
So
right at the end of the road, I'm talking by the close to Route 12.
I would say anything goes come spring.
Yeah.
I think that anytime you're going to go from that cold to warm weather, it's going to be a battle. So I don't think we've put hot mix in there twice now. We had put it some more in again after the initial one that we put in there. I don't think we had hot mix in there at the end of last year. I think that, so there's a chance that it might hold up better, but I suspect that it is a patch, and water, cold, and then warm weather is never kind to that mix.
Well, I guess we'll wait and see.
One other thing I will add, this is more towards fiscal year 18. We're in fiscal year 19 now. So back when on the general fund, I was a little skeptical. I think that we were showing a fair amount of surplus at that point in time. Since that time, we realized last year that they didn't bring over quite, the adjustment to the highway fund wasn't enough that they originally brought over, so that the highway fund essentially got shorted a little bit. So we made the appropriate adjustment there. And also with delinquent taxes, from the year before, delinquent taxes increased like $36,000 over the year before. Now, whenever we get into the discussion of delinquencies, it's a little convoluted, but you had a number that we ended with at the end of fiscal year 17, the end of fiscal year 18, it was higher by about $36,000. So that also eats into essentially what we would have had as essentially a surplus in the general fund, so that affects us. I don't think we ended up in the negative, but it wasn't quite as rosy, but I think we end up maybe $12,000 surplus type thing. We went through the audit, and the auditors give us that delinquent number at the end of the year as an adjustment, and that's what we got. So delinquencies do count, but to answer a question, or at least to maybe highlight a question you asked a couple months ago, no, you wouldn't want to budget for the shortfall of your delinquencies. I tried to explain it last time, but essentially that becomes deferred revenue. And that should be revenue you get at some point in time. It's just not this year, perhaps next year, if we do things correctly. So if you were to budget what you think are your delinquencies, you would be, if you do catch up on your delinquencies, then you would essentially be overtaxing the taxpayers. That makes sense?
Yes, it does.
So that's why you wouldn't budget for it, but that's why having a tight delinquent tax policy is fairly important. You're always going to have fluctuations year to year. Some years you don't collect quite as much, some years you collect more, depending on the activity, but you should try and keep it relatively consistent and a little bit lower than what we've got.
How much revenue should a tax sale generate?
If the properties sell, we have got 2 properties with at least $25,000 outstanding, so that's 50 just on 2 of them that seem to be going to sale at this point in time. I would say those are the 2 big ones. That's if it sells for, if they sell.
Do they have to go for the amount owed?
I believe the answer is yes. I think the person that takes it over ends up paying off the taxes. So if they buy it for $5, then they owe the taxes plus however much they bid over the taxes, or they just buy it for the amount of the taxes, I think. Pretty sure about that.
Where's the tax sale held? Here?
It should be held here. I'm not sure where you held the last one, but it should be held. Every time
I came to one here.
You've been to here. Every time I've been to one, it's been at the town offices, someplace, usually in kind of the auditorium type.
It was just right down here where I came.
Is it down here? So I'm jumping ahead to the town manager update, but I think we're down to 4 or 5 out of that list, depending on a couple.
That's good.
So then, so that was 20. right? Wasn't there a
It was out of, we actually ended up doing 17. You wanted no more than 20, we ended up putting 17.
So, and weren't there 60 or 63 on the list or something?
50, about 50.
50, okay, so when would he do the next group?
So I've been talking with him about having another one 6 months from now, so that would be, needs to be 60 days, I think, after delinquents, taxes go delinquent, so that would be like June, May or June, I think we've been looking at. February, March, April, yeah, around May.
They're already delinquent,
There are some already delinquent, yes.
so why not do it sooner?
That's just, they're not the easiest thing to put together and pull off, so, plus that will incorporate another group of people that are delinquent. So, I mean, there's some that maybe 1 year delinquent now, and by the end of February, they may be 2 years delinquent, and we'll probably, we'll take a look at that 50 and pull 20 out of it, and just keep chugging along until we can whittle this down
Because that's what
more.
I think we kind of talked about, is that we're not doing anybody any favors by letting them go 3 years, 4 years.
It's very clear that it's problematic for some of these people to crawl out of the hole.
I would think anybody and everybody.
There's
Yeah, so we want to be more on top of this so they don't get down in that hole in the first place.
Right. And then if it was, so do you think a regular schedule of every 6 months is a reasonable goal, or once a year, or?
I think until this stabilizes a bit, 50 is a high number, and when we ended last year 175, obviously it's just, the consequence just is not, people just aren't giving us a priority.
Right.
So I think if we can whittle that down to a more manageable number, and to something that we're happier with, then I think we can go back to once a year. But I would do at a minimum once a year. I think in our present state, I think we're looking at doing them every 6 months,
Okay,
unfortunately.
right.
It's fairly
Well, I think
high.
when we saw that recent case, it was really clear to me that we weren't doing those people any favors, and like you said, they did not make it a priority to pay taxes. And they could have.
It appears to me that most people are paying their mortgage, and they're paying their automobile. For some reason, they're not paying their taxes.
Okay.
So just to give you a little perspective, I think that translates, it may not include this $13,000 bill, but I think I saw 6,000 tons of hardback material that's been utilized.
How much?
6,000 tons.
6,000 tons?
Yep.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure about that.
That's 6,000 tons, so that's a lot of weight. Does that sound right to you?
It's about 300 loads if you divide it by 20.
Oh, okay.
Is that normal?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I think it should be.
Yeah, average. It's only 300 loads.
It should be fairly normal for us. We're playing catch up. We have very clay type roads, and the material on the roads, we dabbled a little bit in this discussion last meeting, but the material on the roads is fairly important to the overall maintenance and helping to curb the number of potholes and other things that we have going on. I mean, it's part of the puzzle, you know. Drainage is another part of the puzzle, which is taking care of the berms that build up on the side or doing the ditching, material and grading, but, you know, it's looking at the, you know, cutting some of the trees back, you know, roadside mowing, all kind of part of the full equation. And I think it was fairly apparent with some of the things that we were running into early in the season that the need for material on top of the roads was pretty clear.
So do we have a pile of hard pack on hand down at the pit?
We're actually fairly lean at the moment on that.
Small pile. Don't we need that for spring so that you can easily get it, or is that not necessary?
We're just trying to figure out how we want to handle the springtime. So
okay.
we did a mixture this fall and summer of having outside contractors bring it in and also doing it ourselves. So we just, you know, in the past, we've just had a fairly enormous pile going into the spring, which is fine, and we kind of hauled it all out ourselves. We just, we're discussing how much we want to handle over the winter time and have on hand for the springtime.
Yeah, and if you could pick it up, you'd save one loading. If you got it in London and put it on the road, that would, if there's time to do that. Save one handling.
Say that again?
Well,
if we go down to the pit and if they deliver it to the pit.
If you're gonna hire trucks.
Yeah, or even with our own truck, if you could go over, if you had time to go over to Lebanon and get it, it would save dumping it and reloading it down here. So, let you guys figure it out.
We're mulling our options over. We're looking at that and the budget and how we want to go about that. So, but he will need to. I mean, I think it's usually around mid-November or so that they bring it in and dump a pile there for springtime.
So, I guess we're ready for your manager update. If you've got anything else to tell us.
Roof, they finished up on the roof on the library.
Great.
It was a fairly painless project. Not all, but most of the clapboard went back on as they took it off. And there was no rot underneath even in the valleys, there was no rot found, at least on the on the plywood and stuff underneath the layering. They think that, you know, there was maybe a crevasse or something between the plywood and it kind of got down there, but it wasn't rotten in any kind of way, so that was positive. So that is done. Webster Road, they are essentially finished. They're just finishing that up. Some of the ditching and culvert work there. We already talked about Pike. I think Pike is probably the big story here on potentially putting that off until next spring, which is a little disappointing. Just one comment. One of the things that we did run into dumping some of the material, we thought it might be a problem kind of continuously. It didn't really become a problem until we did Brothers Road. Weather was kind of lousy when we dumped the hard pack on Brothers Road. Kind of the day that was going down, actually 2 days, both days that we had them scheduled, it was wet and created some muddy roads over there. We kind of let it sit overnight, graded it up the next day. Still kind of soft over there. I think we'll have to go back and grade that up. But it's one of those things that we do need to I think the call was made on a Friday and for a Monday, and the weather went bad by Monday. But once we kind of pulled the trigger on the trucks, it's kind of in motion. But we didn't run into too much of that, but on Brothers Road we did, and we will be getting back out there on that. Hartland Riders Club. Gordon, I talked to you a little bit about them. They approached me about, they're looking for a place since Connie Tessier passed away and the house has changed hands. They're looking for a place to essentially set up their ring. She gave me a call and was inquiring about kind of the green space over next to the Children's Center. If you're looking at the Children's Center to the left of it, towards the well, I mean, there's also kind of a hill there, so I think it's pretty tight in there. Don't know if that's the best area. I kind of conveyed that, but thought I would throw it out because I told her I can't imagine that someplace in Hartland there's not enough space to ride some horses. But
So the Connie's old space is not
Connie's space
available.
doesn't seem to be an option. I don't know if it's just the new, I don't know what communication, I didn't get a clear picture there, but just know that they're looking for a new place. So if anybody has, or a thought on that, let me know, or I have to get the name, but Sue Esty, I think it was, Etsy, was the one that called looking for space.
I wouldn't think that'd be a good spot. Not with the well there. Shouldn't,
No, it's not a good idea. I don't think. It's
you
not
know.
good.
Brownsville Road's kind of busy.
A lot of traffic, yeah.
Yeah, it's busier than.
I wonder if Cog Hill
Oh.
has a space. I mean, it would depend on the time of year, but if they, right across the road from Connie's, if they're done haying, there's quite a big field there.
Yeah,
If they
and I
did-
don't think they hay it anymore either.
You
I
know,
think they use it as pasture.
so I wonder if I don't know when they do their ride. Is it in the fall?
No, it's always,
Summer,
don't they have
August.
events?
yeah. July and August, I think, is when they need
So
some
it might work
space.
out.
Thinking of Appledore, is that still for sale? Do you know?
I think that sign is still up.
I was just
for
thinking,
sale.
they have that indoor equestrian thing, they have the outside ring up, you know. So I wonder if there's some setup like that that would be willing. They would have, I mean, they would have the contacts with the horsey people,
You would think,
you know.
better than we do.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
But, so are they asking for an opinion for the activity center space?
My answer was, I don't think that's the best spot. I just said, I will mention the conversation to the select board and see if I can get any response, if anybody has any ideas where a better place would be.
Okay.
Don't want to give it a call back. And if in the middle of that conversation you are all like, oh no, I think it's a great spot, then I'd say, well, okay, but I don't think it'd be a good spot.
Doesn't sound like a great spot.
No.
I guess they should really develop a list of what their needs are before anybody could say yay or nay, to their, not for that space, I think that's clear, but if we were to talk to anybody that we might know, we would need to.
I think parking seems to be apparently there are a number of cars, trucks, and trailers, because I
Right.
mentioned the Special Breeds, or what's it called? The Special Breeds place. I understand that was kind of getting away from their original mission, and I thought that maybe that space would be more available. she said that she had looked into it, but she didn't think it would be very difficult to get to, plus the number of cars and trailers that would park would be more than that could handle.
Well, maybe mention Cobb Hill. As I recall, they just kind of park along the road
Right.
there by Connie's, so
Mhm.
they
Right.
can still do that.
That's what they did in the past. Okay.
I think Advent Hill, it might be the wrong direction for them to ride from. Anyways, I think they need to be that way more. Anything else?
I had two correspondents that came out, just to give it real quick, because one was from Vermont Municipal Clerks and Treasurers Association, just saying that Clyde received an award from VMCTA. He completed the requirements for a certified Vermont clerk, cum laude, addressed to the select board. Figure I'd just let you know. And the other thing was from Stuart Farnham, and it had to do with the discussion on the Three Corners intersection and the borrowing of money. He's in favor of the utilities and borrowing, but he said that, I told him that that discussion will happen again probably in November. So he said, don't worry about it, he'll be here for that particular meeting. So I didn't go crazy on that, so.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Dave, I've never seen you go crazy on anything, so. I have nothing.
You have never seen me ski in Utah.
Oh, okay. No, I haven't. Good to know.
Or a really good red wine.
Okay.
Nope, everybody's quiet.
I tried, I thinking it was gonna be an hour, and, we still couldn't make it there, but it was.
This is very, very
Impressive.
good, yes.
So we're all done.
Yes.